Hi, I'm Margaret Warren, and I am the owner of Metadata Authoring Systems. I am the creator and founder of ImageSnippets, which is a tool which lets users parse image description and other resource description into RDF and linked data. Triples. So,
Hi,
yeah.
my name is Keith Corbett. I'm a consultant doing business as Special Forms Software. I've worked for about 7, 8 years on semantic web technologies, data engineering before that in multiple industries. And we're going to talk about our project today. Ready to go?
I'm ready.
Okay, I'm going to hit share. So our project is about building personal knowledge graphs for bookmarks and citations with curation. This is for the Knowledge Graph Certificate Program. And our goals in a nutshell are to provide a tool, to prototype a tool that allows users to capture bookmarks with metadata annotations from any type of online resource. We are referring to citations in an informal way, not the academic sense. We would like users with uh, in non-academic settings to get the same benefit of annotations and citations that they get from academic tools. And we're also very interested in personal knowledge management and curation by groups. And we see benefits in building personal knowledge graphs for a project like this.
Right. We were very inspired by um, a couple of different things. We found out that we had a collaborative interest um, in citations and curation of citations as an act of a very human act of connecting people to the things that influence them and then being able to share those with each other.
Exactly. Why don't we give credit where credit is due to some people, the Data-Worthy Collective. Do you want to explain about that
Sure,
briefly?
yeah. So I'm most often found as the host and moderator of a group called the Data-Worthy Collective, which is a place where Keith and I met, and also through some other connected people, citing Larry Swanson, who introduced us. And the Data-Worthy Collective meets weekly to talk about all things that are data worthy. So that's in a
Exactly.
nutshell, but it's a non-commercial environment. And at one point, I was introduced to a woman named Naomi Most, who wrote an article called "Citation is an Act of Creation." And it's a really interesting perspective on the meaningfulness of citation. And so this is partly how we got inspired to start talking about more about. We'd always had an interest in bookmarks and citations, but this kind of just added fuel to that fire.
Right. And I think it's fair to say that in discussions at the Data-Worthy Collective, a lot of people expressed an interest. They wished they had a tool, that they had a tool like this, right?
Yes, absolutely. Mhm.
I'll jump into some definitions with a sort of an abstract example very quickly. Generally, anything on the web is an online resource, and that's the concept of a resource is baked into the web. And so, for example, a KGC masterclass video is an online resource, which we'll be talking more about. A bookmark. If you bookmark a URL in a web browser, that's what you get. You capture the URL and a very, very little bit of metadata. The browsers don't give you much, but essentially, as we wander around on the web, we capture URLs all the time for things that we want to go back to that we're interested in, and we'd like our bookmarking tool to capture just the most basic metadata that's available on those pages, titles, descriptions, author or creators, dates. Many web pages have a lot of metadata for SEO purposes. But we'd also like to add our own annotations. And I just gave very few examples here. We'd like to be able to rate something. We love this, we hate this, we've read it, or it's to be read later, or viewed or unviewed. And maybe why it's of interest to us, what topic drew us to this resource. And then as we go on, we'll be referring to references and citations to books, online resources, but also to names and people, places, and things. So a video might drop casually a mention of a person that's contributed to the topic. And we're going to be treating all of those as, considering all of those as citations for this purpose.
Mhm. Mhm.
Do you want
So
to speak to this idea?
yeah, do you want me to take that? Yeah. Well, what I think is so interesting, and the next page after this shows one of the um, citation ontologies that we came across, which is was quite interesting. It's the Open Citations ontology, and it had so we came up with a lot of discussion around how to model the data that's going to be in these citations. And there's an awful lot of choices for this. There are schema.org has a lot of choices for citations. This ontology has a lot of choices for citations. There are other, even DBpedia and Wikidata have their own definitions of citations, affiliations, references. So it's very interesting to sit and think when you're talking about some resource on the web, how is it that you want to refer to that? And then which property choice, which vocabulary do you want to use to represent that in a tool when we're going to build a tool? What is going to give us the most bang for our buck, so to speak, in the modeling of the data?
We both love modeling, it's fair to say, and
Mhm.
we want to have our own vocabulary, but we want to harmonize it with vocabularies that are out there. But I have to say up front, I didn't find, Margaret, I don't think you found one vocabulary that was completely suited to bookmarking. So that's a work in progress.
Correct.
So to set some context, I'm going to go through this very quickly. For the KGC certificate, the Builder track, the Capstone Project, we collaborated on this project as part of the Builder certificate program at KGC. These are the steps that we were asked to pay attention to during our project planning, and we went through these steps together, collaborating, creating a minimal application within a larger project, building a POC, and then the long-term vision to establish a knowledge sharing platform on top of tools that we have. These are the tools that came into play, one to more or less of an extent during, and I won't read these because we're going to bring these up during the slides, but all of these tools were things that we either considered or actually used in the project so far. And some of these will come into play as we advance the project after this. And the concepts, I've already talked about this, but to refine a knowledge graph concept based on what we learned in the Builder classroom, uh, very much about personal knowledge graphs, and the idea of the project was to build a POC. And these are some of the research methods that we discussed in the certificate program that we brought in. We did not actually jump off of an existing no hacks project because we were very passionate about this one. And I've already received, Margaret, I didn't even tell you we've received an invitation to bring this into no hacks for the future if we want.
Oh, excellent. Okay, great.
Yes,
And I have not done a no hacks project before, so that also led to this,
it's fun.
way we approached it. Yeah.
It is very fun. It's fair to say we've been thinking of this as an open source project.
Yeah.
And some of the critical problem solving techniques that we brought to bear. And the timeline was very tight. We got a final approval for this just about a month ago and worked on it in these phases, POC, testing and refinement. The collaboration is ongoing, and after this, we can decide what we want to do with this if we take it a step further. And
Mhm.
today is February 3rd. Here we are.
Mhm. Yes.
Margaret, I'll start first, right? I'll walk through the
Okay.
tools that I used and the approach that I took. I'm not going to be going into great detail on any of these slides. I'll just refer to explain what's going on there. But in my work, and Margaret, you did some of the same things. We worked on creating RDF triples from ChatGPT. What can we get from an LLM that would get us started on extracting bookmarks and citations? And we'll have a lot to say about that. I also worked on managing the RDF in triple stores using tools that I've used before and some that I hadn't. And then a little bit of work on harmonizing the RDF with, as we discussed before, a custom ontology for bookmarks.
Mhm.
And Margaret, do you want to address the basic approach to getting a transcript?
Sure. There's a lot of open source tools out there on the web, or free, rather. I'm not sure that they're open source. They're free tools for getting the transcripts from the videos when videos are not attached already uh, in YouTube. So we chose to work with several videos from the Knowledge Graph conference that were public. Because I can use URLs in image snippets, I don't have to, I'm not restricted to using just still images, even though the title, image snippets seems to imply that. But I can use a URL from a YouTube video, and we will
Mhm.
generate a thumbnail from the whatever the thumbnail is. That's the front facing thumbnail in YouTube. And then we can talk about the video as if we were talking about a still image, but we're not talking about that still image. We're actually talking about, in triples, the URL for the YouTube video itself. So the picture is just sort of representative. It's like something you can look at just when you're describing the video and the contents of the video, which lets us create things like citations in the form of triples. And so we chose three, one from Deb McGinnis, one from Heather Hedden, and one from Denny Vrancek. And these were ones that were public um, videos that were just available in YouTube.
Mhm. And one of our conclusions, which
Oh, I think
not
we
to
get to
not
that
to
in
spoil,
another slide. Yeah,
we will, yeah.
yeah.
So this was the video that we focused on, and we both did some experimenting to get the transcript. And the first question, I'd call this the conversation, talking to our videos. We wanted to find out if ChatGPT can actually understand the transcript, or understand is a very loaded word. Can it find citations? And one of the questions I asked was, can you reformat those citations in a bib tech format? And I saw a lot of promise in here. And for this video that we chose, which was a video keynote by Heather Hedden at KGC 2023. I checked the citations, and I didn't check every single bit in Word, but the URLs, the concepts, all of those were in the transcript and in her video. It was very semantically rich transcript and video as it happened. And so by asking the LM to reformat the citations as RDF triples using turtle syntax, it generated all of these entities, not using, it chose the schema.org on its own, which I thought was fascinating. And it connected things to DC, friend of a friend. Those are the main ones. And it just generated a bunch of entities for each of these things, the books, the people, the names of things.
I think it's safe to say, though, that a human really does need to check these. You need to check the properties to make sure they really exist. You need to also check the URLs. If it creates any URLs, you need to actually double check those by hand. I have had a number of instances with ChatGPT and similar products where those kind of things were just hallucinated. In fact, when I put in the Deborah McGinnis video, I found that it actually hallucinated a lot of what it called implicit citations. And actually they were completely wrong. They were completely made up. There was a reference to IBM, a reference to DARPA. None of these things were in her keynote.
Yeah,
So you really have to be careful about it. It's not 100%.
exactly. Although presumably these concepts were connected to her
Right,
talk in some way. They were not citations in the talk,
right,
which was very
right,
interesting.
right.
Um, I was struck that it could find authors and the books that they had written that she
Yes,
referred to. There were just a
it
couple
found
in
some.
Heather's. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is just to show the RDF in about the people. It recognized that Heather Hedden is a person, found her a folk name and a homepage URL, which I did click on. But I want to say that as a programmer, I'm a very lazy programmer, and I want a tool that will not only generate these things, but will check them for me. And that would be something we would go beyond. We would go beyond.
Yeah.
But we've talked about, for example,
Yeah.
GraphRag or similar approaches.
Yeah.
Also, did it for organizations. It knew that the W3C had published a standard, and it found some bookmarks. And schema.org does have a bookmark action, but not a rich ontology for bookmarks themselves, which I found interesting. Yeah, in other words, it's well aware of the action of bookmarking a resource. So now I'll just talk briefly about what I did manipulating the RDF with in Protege and using Sparkle. I didn't get much value out of using Sparkle, which in my experience is a very useful tool, but I didn't have to do anything just now. But the concept is harmonizing the AI-generated RDF with our personal knowledge graph, OWL
Mhm.
RDF. And that's both Margaret and I really focused on that after we had extracted some useful triples.
Mhm.
So using Protege, I was able to not only view the ontologies that ChatGPT had brought in with references, but create a little harmonized ontology of my own, edit and create data entities, run Sparkle queries. The step that I didn't get to was to run rules and inferencing, which is one of my special interests. And there is, for example, the swirl language, and people use Shackle for rules. And in the past, I've connected these kinds of tools together with rules engines. And that would be, I think, my next area of research for the knowledge graph, the personal knowledge graph project. I did start to go down the path of doing visualization in GraphDB, and just because I'm not very familiar with the tool, I didn't get very far. So I'm just going to flip through these real fast so we can get to the next part. You in Protege, you can bring in an ontology and create a new ontology and do direct imports on files. I put these files up on GitHub, so we'll make those available later. But we have a few different turtle files that we worked with. And you can see here, for example, that the ontology I worked with has all of schema.org and such as a person. And these are the same triples we looked at before. Dave McComb, Heather Hedden, and Tom Gruber are type schema person. And then you can go through the entities themselves and put annotations or change the object and data properties, add them. And then in Sparkle, I confirmed that I could query triples using Sparkle in Protege. It has a Sparkle plugin that you can use, but we'll do a lot more with Sparkle later on in the talk. So for a new bookmarks ontology, I started one from scratch where I create, and this is really just a very simple thing to, this is not really a bookmarks ontology yet, but I wanted to have some working examples. I have an author, I have a bookmark class, a reference class, and a resource. And the idea here is that you bookmark a reference to a resource where a resource is any online resource. And the reference would have the metadata that would be associated with the specific reference inside the specific resource that you're bookmarking. So there's a little circularity here because we would bookmark a resource and that resource would have references to other resources.
Mhm.
The properties I added just for demonstration, an author, and these are the object properties. Author, a bookmark has refers to, in this case, refers to a resource. I'm sure this is the refers to property. So a bookmark refers to the resource, and an author has a name, which is a string. Just two examples of the properties. And then I said that the entities that I created, I didn't show this, but I created some stub entities. And I said that my new entities are OWL same as the entities that were created in the ChatGPT by the LLM. And once I say that the author that I create, the person object in my ontology, as an author, is the same as the schema org person that was found by the LLM, then all of those properties are available, and all of the relationships are attached to my bookmarks author. So a new author is the same as the AI generated author. A new resource that I create in my bookmarking tool is the same as the AI generated book or other creative work. And a bookmark can be associated with the AI generated bookmark implicitly. So now I have what I would call a harmonized ontology proof of concept. And we would need to elaborate this quite a bit more. We might bring in the Cyto ontology that we showed before. But that one has a lot of complexity attached to it. And I think we wanted to show a simple bookmarking ontology that any person could understand without having to understand a complex entity relationships.
Right. I want to jump in and say something
Yeah.
really quick here, that when it says AI generated book, this is the AI generated means the response from ChatGPT, not a fictionalized made up thing. Not
Yeah.
a fictionalized made up book, but an
Yeah.
act,
Well,
but one that
there's some
was
of those out
actually
there, and they're on
written.
Amazon.
Yeah.
No, this was the
Yeah.
AI generated reference, or the
Yeah.
ChatGPT identifying Heather's
And
book, The Accidental
yes.
Taxonomy. Yeah,
Yes.
good
Exactly.
good
This
catch.
is really great. This is really great. Yes.
This was a lot of fun. The other references I want to finish with, there is another ontology editing tool that I actually like better than Protege, but I don't have as much experience. I'll just recommend it. A lot of people don't know about it. Workbench is something that the European Union organizations, government, and industry are using. There's been a lot of investment in academic work on Workbench. And then GraphDB is a commercial tool, but it has a free version. And so I just started to get into this. I imported the schema ontology, and I wanted to connect all of my instances and do Sparkle queries in GraphDB, but I didn't get enough time to do that. But we really do want to have visualization of these entities. And with that, I'll pass it on to
Great.
Margaret.
All right.
I'll stop
So,
sharing.
so alongside, oh, do you want me to start sharing again, or are you going to just keep
Oh,
sharing the same?
I'll
Yeah.
share again. Yeah, I can do
And
that.
then I'll go to say next slide. Yeah.
That's a good idea. Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. So
Yeah.
what's our topic here?
So I'm going to talk about how I created citations in RDF using the ImageSnippets tool. So if we just continue with the next slide. Yeah. Okay. So I think I mentioned this at the beginning, but while it's most often used for describing still images, we still have the capability of describing other resources as long as they have a URL. So we got the transcripts of the videos as the same as Keith did. We uploaded those to ChatGPT, removed the timestamps, and then asked ChatGPT to identify any of the citations and list them in the APA style format. Okay, you can go to the next slide. And um, so basically, this is the upload part where I mentioned earlier that I uploaded Heather Haddon, Deb McGinnis, and Denny Branchchick, all from 2023 public videos. All right. So now I'm going to be able, now when I describe these, I want to point out that even though our label here says, in this instance, it says this image, this is something we're changing for YouTube videos, but the subject, this image of these triples is in fact the actual YouTube video itself. So the link to the YouTube video itself, that URL. Okay, go to the next. So, okay, so in the image snippets, there's a triple editor. That triple tag editor has a number of tabs, and in one of them, I just went and straight posted the in the description, I posted the citations, the references, the books, and the articles that were generated by ChatGPT. And so it mentions a lot of the same things that Keith did about the Tom Gruber, the reference to Tom Gruber, the reference to Heather's book, The Accidental Taxonomist, the reference to Dave McComb and the Data-Centric Revolution, and so on. So those were listed. I put those into the description tag, and then I chose some of those. You can go to the next slide to create triples for. So this is where there really is a lot of decision making that goes into choosing the model that you're going to use. So this is a, I call this interface a kind of a no code interface for making triples. So you'll notice that I have some of the URIs, for example, where it says this image citation in, the NAC, KNAC, and the National Information Standards. Those are all to the URIs where those resources can be found. And also, I can add other relationships in these triples that I create here. So we can continue. Okay, so where I'm getting the URIs from is from a lookup, which I could demonstrate, but I think we just decided to go with slides for this. But
Mhm.
when this shows that I'm choosing a Wikidata entity for the Knowledge Graph conference, which I use that entity to describe these videos because they came from the Knowledge Graph conference. So let's go to the next. And that's the actual Wikidata page, and it's the same Q number. So we're using a lookup, we're using a query, a Sparkle query on the Wikidata service to get this same Q number. So it makes it much faster for someone to create these URIs, a human to do it on the fly. Okay, and if you go forward, okay, so then you can see the net result of this is doing a Sparkle search. For example, if I query the triples, you can see that I queried that entity and I have my 3 videos, and this points to the 3 videos and that are related to the Knowledge Graph conference. Okay, next slide. And I also want to point out here that we have 2 different ways of doing Sparkle searches in ImageSnippets. So we have 2 endpoints. We have one endpoint, which is just for the entire triples themselves. We have another one which queries the quads or the name graphs, which is, of interest because the quad gives each set of triples about that URL as subject. That is the 4th element, the quad in those triples. And so now what this means is that the big difference is that if I have nested triples for an image, those would come up as triples, but they would not necessarily be related to the image still itself. They would be triples in the system, but they would be unique triples. And with the quads, with the name graphs, they're related to the image. And so this returned, not only did it return the snippets, what we call the snippets, which is the link to all of the triples, to the actual HTML that contain the URL that contains all those triples. But we also have some internal links that come from Wikidata where we're making inferences because we build an inference graph as soon as we save triples in ImageSnippets. And so those are internal administrative links there. Okay.
Can I
Right.
interject just very, very
Yeah.
quickly? It's very interesting that you support quads. If I hadn't been attending DataWorthy Collective, I would not have learned that while I was off doing other things, all the triple stores were now quad stores, all the ones that are still in use, which I found absolutely fascinating. And also this graph query mechanism is very sophisticated and very, very, very nice for this purpose.
So this is the slide I showed earlier, but then it shows the result below is like a nested query, a nested triple that I created just to show the search was for Knowledge Graph Conference, and this shows 3 entities, 3 of the URLs that are related to the Knowledge Graph Conference, and the one below is it's a nested triple that I created just for demonstration purposes.
Mm.
Okay. Okay, so now what this is showing is another tool, which is an extension that anyone can download. It's open. It's made by OpenLink software, and it's called the Structured Data Sniffer, and it's got a cute little dog little icon up in the upper right. And uh, this tool, not made by me, this is made by OpenLink software, and who is Kingsley Idahan is behind this software, and it's a really useful tool. So I want to point this out. So if I take any of my snippets, my HTML pages that are filled with lots of structured data, you can see that the structured data sniffer just automatically recognizes all of this juicy structured data. And you can go to any of these entities and kind of follow your nose. I think that's what the whole data sniffer thing was about, was that you can sort of follow your nose and keep following through to find out things about entities that you might use. Okay.
Mhm.
And then this is the description of it, which allows you to it also includes something called the URI burner that allows you to edit the link data as well. So you can use a lot of the links that are from the structured data sniffer, go straight to, and we're going to see a screenshot of this next. So if you keep going. Oh no, nope, sorry.
We'll get
I
there.
inserted another, yeah. I wanted to show another reason why it's really important to have humans in the loop. So I had uploaded the transcript to ChatGPT of Denny Vanchik's talk, and I noticed an odd result that it came up with that I did not it was related to like Google's knowledge graph. And I was like, I don't think this is something, this is in the text. So I'm reading through the text and I find this wonderful quote. Last year in September, 2 months before ChatGPT was released, we had a meeting of researchers, practitioners, industry leaders in Germany to talk about knowledge graphs in the 21st century. Some of them are here. The report is out now. You can read it. So this is a reference that ChatGPT totally missed. And it was to the Dagstuhl seminar. And I, of course, did a quick search, found it, had it formatted as a citation, did find the identifier for this talk. And of course, I created the citation for that talk in the triple editor. But this is something where I definitely had to sniff that out myself as a human. Then ChatGPT did not get that one. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so when you're in the data sniffer, you can do some really fun things. One of them is that you can connect to a solid pod or another pod or any other data space. And if you're going to a page that's full, that's already full of data. So for example, in this bookmarking tool that, we're working on, you can use a tool like the Data Sniffer to download that data as a turtle document, for example, upload it to another Sparkle endpoint, which would maybe possibly be a collaborative Sparkle endpoint, and then collaborate that way, or upload it or download it to your own solid pod as a turtle syntax. So keep going. So this is a view of the linked data URI burner itself, which shows all of the triples that were created in the files that I created, in the snippets I created. And you can see, again, a lot of the same schema references that Keith had in his. So there was a lot of convergence on the two things that we worked on. And then if you go to the next page, I think, then you can take in this URI burner, you can make edits if you want, but you can also just download this from, there's an action where you can download, and this is where I was able to download a turtle file and send it directly. And I think the next page shows the turtle file that it created. Yeah, the messy horrible, hard to read machine language, but you were able to import this turtle syntax directly into Protege and add it
Yep,
right to your working materials. Okay, next
that's
page.
right. And then harmonizing the resources and the authors, you get a much richer set of information.
Hmm. So,
So,
yeah,
in conclusion, I'll start. I'll just say for some of the resources that we worked with, we had great success with ChatGPT, getting RDF representations for the entities that will go into the bookmarking tool of our dreams, um, for some resources, but not all. Margaret?
yeah, we'll have to do it ourselves as human. I mean, we'll
Hmm.
have to track down some of them, and just know who, we're interested in citing and referencing and keeping track of. And yeah, and some of the tools, including image snippets, make creating annotations really easy in a sort of a no code way with linked open data. And especially, being able to link URLs to DBpedia and Wikidata. And so we see a lot of promise in this. And I think you do too, right, Keith? Like,
Absolutely. And we also learned in a very practical way that you don't get these citations for free with AI. You get them with a lot of attention and curation, and how much better it would be if people were collaborating on these personal knowledge graphs and discovering references, citations from each other, and being able to trade them and annotate them. So
absolutely.
that's our talk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.